All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to today's Candid Conversations with Infinite Care, entitled Permission to Feel, Making Sense of Your Own Pain Amidst a Pandemic. My name is Anne Ordoña. I'm the General Manager of Infinite Care. As most of the attendees here today would know, Infinite Care is a mental health company that partners with organizations in providing a range of mental health services through our platform. We offer webinars such as these, talks, training, as well as counseling services and other support services through our platform. So thank you for thank you for coming, and thank you for joining us. This is a big crowd. If you do have friends who you think will benefit from this, you could also find this talk being live streamed now on our Facebook page. Just look for Infinite Care. That's INFINITCARE. All right. Sige. So really, when we talked about this topic, no, we were really thinking about how to celebrate Mental Health Day. So for those of you who may not know, the Mental Health Day celebration happened last October 10. And we thought, since we were in this field really in providing mental health support, we thought that we could be sharing our insights around doing the work of bringing mental health in the workplace and looking at strategies on how to give ourselves and others permission to feel everything from hard to happy. Why so? Siyempre, because the pandemic has made us all feel all sorts of feelings, right? I'm sure you can all relate that you've felt everything from being angry to frustrated to worried to anxious. And so we will talk about really all of these emotions today. We will ask questions such as, why is it hard to show emotions or express emotions? Is it okay to show emotions in the workplace, especially? How can we practice articulating our feelings? Is it okay to feel happy even in the pandemic? Yan. These are all the questions that we will ask and more, because this is really a candid conversation. Ika nga, chikahan, kapihan. Okay? So, thank you to the audience. Please really use the chat box today. Okay? I'd like to hear a lot of comments right there, right in the comment section in the chat box. And if you have questions along the way, please type it as well through our Q&A box. Okay, so since I said it's chikahan, alangan naman, it's just me, no? So I've invited 3 other folks to help me out here. My role is just to moderate, so I have the easiest job. The 3 that I've invited are here to actually provide their insights. So let me begin with our first panelist. Let's all welcome Ms. Shyne Mangulabnan. Okay, Shyne Mangulabnan is a licensed counselor, as well as really the head of clinical care here at Infinite Care. Shyne has extensive experience in workplace counseling with years of training, consulting, and counseling employees through her past experience in employee assistance programs. So she has supported hundreds of employees from companies in BPO sector, finance, tech, and even consumer goods. Shyne also has held roles in guidance and counseling and has taught psychology at Enderan Colleges and Entrepreneur School of Asia. She used to head the student support at DUSIT. And she also had experience counseling women at the Women's Crisis Center, where she had to conduct crisis intervention counseling for women and children who were victims of domestic violence and abuse. So welcome, Shyne.
Good afternoon, and good
Good
afternoon,
afternoon.
everyone.
All right. Okay, next speaker. Her name is Cherrie Ragunton. So Cherrie is one of our valued partners at Infinite Care. Cherrie helps us deliver counseling and workplace mental health coaching through the work that we do she's been conducting several of our webinars and also doing one-on-one counseling. Cherrie also has a background in psychology. She's a counseling psychologist and a life coach, and has helped many clients through her work, even in her own training firm, Interspect. She spent more than 15 years also in training, coaching, leadership development in the corporate world. And if Shyne has an experience in handling women's issues, Cherrie naman is a parenting advocate and has pioneered the Coaching Moms community, a support system for mothers. Welcome, Cherrie.
Hi everyone, good afternoon.
Right. Okay. Last but not the least, we have the CEO of Infinit Care, CEO and founder of Infinit Care, Rudi Ramin. Rudi is a business builder and a people developer in his almost 20 years career in marketing, sales, finance, general management in tech, consumer goods, and professional service. He's really had experience in handling people. But the reason that he started Infinite Care was that he personally struggled with mental health issues and found that getting help from mental health professionals has helped him really in dealing with all these issues. And he saw that it's important to take care of your mental health. Hence, Infinite Care was born. So welcome, Rudi Ramin.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I hope
Hi,
you're all
Rudi.
okay. Hello, Anne. Hi, Shyne. Hi, Cherrie.
Ayun. Ayan. So, we're very excited to have you here, no? And hindi lang to chikahan between the four of us. We'd also like to involve everybody. So, in fact, to kick this off, diretso na, we'd like to get your opinions. Bakit nga ba? Ano ba tong feelings na to? So, if you could use your phone or go to menti.com and enter the code 65789993, I'd like you to type in your answer to these questions. This question: What feelings or emotions do you avoid showing to others? Yon. What do you avoid showing to others? Sadness, anger, okay. Frustration. Ang bigat, vulnerability. Anger is there's a big in the word cloud, no? If you see it bigger, it means more people have typed it in. We also have it in chat. Fear. You don't want to show being afraid. Disappointment. As a parent, that's very difficult to show, no? Yeah. Let's see. We have more than 300 participants now, so I'd really like to see the answers. Dami. Okay. It's not just one feeling that we are stopping ourselves from showing, right? There's grief, lalo na ngayon siguro, panahon ngayon at in COVID, no? Sadness, anger, fear, weakness, showing stress. Okay. So mostly I see negative feelings, right? Disappointment, frustration, fear, vulnerability, anger. Thank you so much. Okay, my follow-up question kasi para akong Miss Universe host eh. The question is, what stops you from showing these emotions? Why is it so hard to express fear, anger, frustration, disappointment, vulnerability? We have a list of multiple choice. You can choose more than one. I think you can choose up to 3. Maybe you rank it based on really your top reasons. I'd like to see what stops you from showing your emotions. You can choose up to 3. Yeah. And if wala dun sa options, type others. Type others. And then let us know sa chat ano yung others. To avoid showing weakness. Yung first pero almost tie with I don't want to burden the listener. I thank you dun sa nag-type ng others. Afraid of consequence. Consequence of sharing the emotion. What will happen, no? Okay. So top reason, avoid showing weakness. I don't want to burden the listener. You don't want to be judged. So thank you for those who are typing in the chat. You don't want to be judged. Avoid hard to articulate feelings, right? I was reading this morning that, sometimes we just use an umbrella term like anger. But actually, marami palang 10 other ways to express it. Maybe it's not really anger, it's disappointment, it's frustration, or you're upset, right? So sometimes it's hard to say it exactly. Ayan. These are very insightful. So, panelists, we see, I don't want to burden the listener and avoiding showing weakness as the top two reasons. And really, Pao, if you could share the next slide. I'd like the panelists to react to these statements. So the way we're gonna run this candid chikahan and conversation is, and in the work that we do, we've actually received a lot of insights and statements in the webinars, in the counseling sessions. And top to, this is a top statement we always hear. I believe showing emotions is a sign of weakness. And maybe let's start, Shine, why do people nga ba feel that it's a sign of weakness? Your reaction to this?
Yeah. And I think part of it really is most of us, no, we grow up, if we grow up receiving messages from parents, relatives or caregivers that our opinions or feelings don't matter, then eventually, most likely, we'll end up hiding our feelings from an early age. And when this has been practiced at an early age, we continue to do it, right? Even when we're in school or as adults. So yeah, and part of it is because we're also scared to ruin relationships. When we tell a person about what we feel, about our emotions, we're afraid of what the outcome will be. We're afraid of what the reaction will be. And sometimes we fear that it can affect the relationship that we have with people, perhaps, for example, at work or people that you are in relationship with. So that's what one or two of the reasons as to why we are afraid to show our emotions or to feel like it's a sign of weakness.
A sign of
We're also
weakness.
and we're also scared to be judged, of course. Madaming judgmental. So
But I'm
ayan.
getting, and Shine, so top reasons feeling that, I might be judged, and what's the consequence? If I say it, how will they view me? Right? Will they judge me na? Right?
And which in turn affects also the relationships that you have with people, right? When you're judged, you're scared all the more to open up, or you don't want to be yourself anymore, right?
Cherrie, do you hear the same reasons in the counseling that sessions that you've done? No? Do you hear the same reasons of why people don't show their emotions?
Absolutely, and oh yes, definitely, no, absolutely. And I guess to add, no, to what Shine mentioned, kasi especially, I don't know if we have expats here, but in the Philippine context, at an early age, boys, especially boys being toddler and us being, kids before, growing up, we are always being told by our parents na you're not supposed to cry. You're not supposed to be sad. I'm giving everything to you. Why are you feeling that way? No? So at an early age, we are already being taught and programmed na negative feelings are not supposed to be there. So as we grow up, we were not able to train ourselves on how to deal with these negative emotions or even handle them, no. And yon basically, because we are programmed at a very young age that the negative emotions are not supposed to be there, without realizing that even these negative emotions have reasons and meanings. They're not just there for nothing, diba? Yon.
Okay, as the token boy in the room, because Cherry kasi said the statement that caught me. Boys don't cry. Rudy, were you programmed this way? Therapy
Yeah.
session pala to for Rudy, ha, everybody. So just
Oh, so I'm not a mental health expert,
yeah.
but I would definitely attest to what Shine and Cherry said. This concept for us men, that showing emotions or even showing crying or these negative emotions are signs of weakness rather than of strength. So imagine the feeling you can't even identify after being programmed for several decades, right? That it's not expected of you, or if you do it, you're less of a man, or you're actually less of a person, you start to not even recognize what these feelings are, right? So you don't even know, like, okay, like I've been shown feelings, an emotions wheel, right? There's several emotions that you could actually feel, and you can actually feel several emotions all at the same time. I think there's a challenge on even naming what emotion it is, and then another challenge on expressing that emotion to someone else, right? So I think there's like multiple challenges, and the male psyche and the expectation, we talked about toxic masculinity, really makes it more difficult for the men. I also can speak about from a point of view of a leader, right? Or leading an organization, or leading a team, or a family, right? You are head of the family. You put yourself in you expect and assume that you cannot show negative emotions, because it will be a sign of weakness, and the people that are relying on you will actually feel disappointed, or it will break down, right? So all of this pressure, whether you are a leader of your unit on a business, or because you're male, or because as a woman you are expected to handle and be resilient and be persistent on different things, I think it bears on the mind of an individual. But I think what Cherrie is trying to say is that emotions are real. It exists. So it's just that we're not saying it or not expressing it. It exists, and it's all of them are valid. And I think that becomes a challenge for all of us.
I think I like what you said, Rudi. No, there's a lot of unlearning to do, because programming nga according to Cherrie, programming. I have a question. Is the programming more on men? Because Rudi mentioned toxic masculinity. Do women also face the same issues? They say we're the more emotional gender. Is it true? Is that women can express their feelings more? I'd like Shyne or Cherrie to respond to that.
Yeah, women, yes, there is truth to that, but at the same time, it's the opposite also, or not naman opposite, no, because women are expected, quote unquote, to solve everything. If you know that, if you've noticed that, right? Being the eldest, you're the woman, you're the mom, figure it out, what's the best solution when your daughter has a difficulty with a project, what do you do? Parang ikaw yung magsusolve ng lahat ng, and it's also not healthy if you think about it, right? So
there's a different expectation also. There's a different
yeah.
expectation that you should be able to handle the more difficult emotions. Is it?
Right.
That's what's
right.
happening.
And, yes, and you have to be emotionally strong. 'Di ba? Naririnig natin 'yan sa ating mga telenovela when we talk about it. O ikaw yung nanay, ikaw yung ganito, dapat matatag ka. 'Di ba? That's what we get.
Cherrie, would you like to add to that?
Go ahead, Rudi.
I was just gonna say, from a workplace standpoint, there's also this if, let's say, as a woman you show emotion, especially if you cry or you show anger, that will be labeled as either you're weak, or you're difficult to work with, right? And there's a gender bias to that. So I think that also puts the burden of, can I be myself and talk about how I feel? So it's kind of different for the men and the women, but I think it all boils down to us feeling that we have to repress these emotions.
It's like there is an expectation of how you're supposed to act, male or female, leader or employee, and then you cannot bring that your full authentic self to the work because you are supposed to be acting or feeling in an exact way or in a prescribed manner. Cherrie, any observations you've had with the work that you've been doing? Why does this happen?
Actually, Anne, kasi if you will try, this is more on the clinical aspect, if we will try to study more on the mood disorder, most of the clients or patients talaga who's going through mood disorder, which of course includes the major depressive disorder, the postpartum and all those things, no. Most of the patients talaga are women, because women are naturally emotional, no. Whereas sabi nga in the context naman sa mga lalaki kasi, men are naturally logical also, and sometimes instead of them allowing themselves to express their emotions, mas nagwo-work ang logical aspect, no. But on the flip side, so that's on the clinical side, but on the physiological side, we also have to remember that our brain, the cerebral cortex, is actually even responsible for the sensation, for the memory, and that's why we have this term, the emotional memory. So lahat tayo, regardless of gender, we could actually create a program based on our experiences while growing up, or even as adults, no. For example, growing up, you are being abused or being spanked by your father. So that created a program into your brain. Kasi pag nagkakaroon ng trauma or abuse ang isang tao, the cerebral cortex is actually shutting down. And when that happens, nagke-create yon ng memory na every man in my life could actually hurt me. So that's on the aspect of the physiological. So, but in the aspect of clinical, it's true that women are more prone to have depression or any other mood disorder. Yeah.
Wow, interesting to hear the psychological aspect to it. So my question is this, before we move on to the next statement, no? Is there a right way of showing emotions in the workplace? Like, how do you regulate? How do you regulate and express emotions in the workplace? And maybe I'll start with you, Rudy. You've been working for a long time. Have you found an answer to this? Like, how do you show emotions at work?
I've always believed in bringing your real self to work. I feel like as human beings, we are at our most productive, engaged, and inspired self if we are our real self, right? And that includes all the imperfections and the negative emotions that we have. I also believe there's the right place in the right time. So, for example, negative emotions just being blurted out to the whole team without any reference to what the action is, it's quite, for me, unproductive. But sharing your emotion to your mentor, to your boss, right, or to your team is definitely, if done in the right way, I think it's real and authentic. I think that's in the workplace that should be allowed, accepted, and encouraged, right? So I think the way to show emotions, it's more how authentic you are as a person. It also bears to mind psychological safety within the team. If let's say someone really had an outburst because they couldn't keep it to themselves, then the team should be, it should feel safe enough for the team, to embrace that person. We're here for you, versus a judgment, because these are emotions, right? You cannot just say, "Oh, I forget about it because I felt it." And I think for me, as long as the team is psychologically safe, you are all supporting each other, and you feel that you are able to be your authentic self, I think that would be the ideal scenario. But I know not everyone would have this ideal scenario, right? So for me, finding people within your organization where you can have these conversations definitely is a huge plus, right? That's why you always have a buddy, right? Have a buddy. In the work that we do in companies, we provide some support, either through chat or counseling sessions, right? So there's a third person who are more experts in mental health who you could talk to if you're not comfortable sharing it with your colleagues. But what we also do is we run, for example, webinars. I know Cherrie and Shyne, you've done this with some of our clients on how to provide peer support. Because it's important for all of us to support each other. It's not just the experts. So I think there are ways you could do that, but definitely I can understand. It's really rooted in how comfortable you feel about being authentic and the culture of the team and the company that you are in.
Yeah, you highlighted the importance of leaders creating that safe space, no? And it's not something that can be done overnight. Like, if you have not created that space, I don't think you can also expect people to come to you and say that, I'm feeling this way, right? So, to the psychologist in this panel, uh, going back to the question earlier, is there a right way of showing emotions in the workplace? Let's start with you, Shine.
Yeah. And I'd like to add lang to what Rudy was
Yeah.
saying
Okay.
about for me it's really about building a culture of trust, right? In the
Mm.
workplace, being able to talk about emotions, normalize conversations on mental health, and practicing emotional intelligence skills also is quite a challenge, no, in the workplace. But for me, I just want to add three things to that. Are recognize it's easy for us to get overwhelmed when we're in a situation where it's new to us, or a situation that's um a difficult or challenging situation per se, no? So we don't immediately react, so that we were capable also of taking deep breaths and recognizing the emotion for what it is, because like what Rudy said, we don't want it to be an outburst. And we don't want, because the selfish thing about an outburst is the people around you, the people that you work with, will get affected. And sometimes they're clueless as to what's happening. Why is this right? And you don't want that. We don't want that, especially now in this pandemic when most of us are working virtually also. Okay, and next one would be understanding your emotions. Really naming your emotions and focusing on the why. Why am I feeling this way? Am I upset because my boss said this to me? And if so, how can I manage this emotion? So the third one is managing your emotion. Really, it's making sure that there is time for you to cool down, time for you to reflect on what you're feeling. Is this something that needs to be addressed? Do I still feel after several hours of thinking, sitting down, getting mad at my boss, for example? Boss talaga, no, Rudy? Right? If you feel like you need to address, do you still need to address the situation? Is it possible that I overreacted? Or if I say something, is it going to be an overreaction, right? Try to calm down within yourself also. Because if you look at it, it's not pushing away the emotion, right? But it's more of internalizing, understanding what it is that you're going through.
Shine, thank you
That's
for that. You really talked about, okay, so how do we then express it? If and I like that you also said na hindi naman kailangang outburst lahat. And also, so Rudy talked about having a safe space and knowing who to say it to, and then you're saying the how. No, Cherry, do you have anything to
Right.
add to that?
Ang ganda, no? I like what Miss Shine mentioned about internalizing. No, we really have to remember that every emotions are valid, and therefore we should not try to suppress it or repress it, right? And ako, to add to what Miss Shine mentioned already, it's more about communicating also how and articulating what you are feeling. No, kami in any relationship, couple counseling or workplace counseling, and kapag ang nagiging issue is the relationship, we always tell clients and people that there is always a better way to communicate how you are feeling, no? Kami, ang one of the things that we would always recommend is using the I statement, no? The I statement is you allowing yourself to express what you are feeling and making other people understand where you're coming from, no? So the I statement could be, I am feeling like this. So I feel sad, or I feel disappointed when you are not giving me the reports on time, because so you have to explain where you are coming from, rather than using the you statement. The you statement is you are making me disappointed, you are making me frustrated, no? So if we are going to use the you statement, the other person that you are talking to would have the tendency to become defensive. So nagsha-shutdown na kaagad yung intention to understand, But when we try to use the I statement, this is what I am feeling. I am honoring and respecting what I am feeling, and I'd like to communicate it to you so you would know where I am coming from. So yun.
Cherry, very powerful. I noticed that you actually said I feel and not say I am. Parang, 'di ba? I hear a lot na, you should be careful in the way you say it, because sometimes you actually just make it about your identity that I'm an angry person or I'm a sad person. But really, you can move from one feeling to the next, right?
Exactly.
You're allowed to feel this range of emotions, and it's important really to figure out the best way for you to express it. So, we can take this conversation it, for a long time now, but I also wanted to move on to one of the statements that we always hear, especially during this pandemic. So Anne, sige, I can express, I'm angry, I'm stressed, but I stop myself because who am I to complain? So we hear a lot of these statements na I'm stressed out, but I have a job, my family naman is safe and healthy. I don't think I should be complaining. On the opposite side, we also hear statements about actually I'm okay, I'm good, pero if I show that I'm super positive, maybe people will tell me ang toxic mo naman, bakit ka ganyan, or I feel guilty about feeling happy, pero sa totoo lang happy talaga ako. So any reactions to this? Can you relate to this? I think there's a term for this, comparative suffering, right? And any
Yeah.
reactions to this? I'll start with you naman, Cherrie.
Yeah, no. I like that term, the comparative suffering, no. But we also have to remember that what could be difficult for me could not be difficult to others. And what could be positive to others could not be positive to me. So this is where our sensitivity would come in, no, the respect of what other people are feeling also at the same time. Kasi nga, iba-iba tayo ng pinanggagalingan. And even our own experiences could actually affect and influence how we are perceiving different situations, right? So I guess what's very important here is to acknowledge kung ano yung pinagdadaanan ng isang tao, where the other person is coming from and what the other person is experiencing. Ako, if there are times, no, because of course, I am in the helping profession, but sometimes I have that kind, bakit naging mahirap sa kanya yon? 'Di ba? Sometimes I would have the thought, I don't know with you, Shyne, 'di ba? So ako, I have to be mindful, okay, wait. What I'd like to find out, where is this person coming from? So my approach would be, okay, please tell me more about what's going on with you, what's happening with you, so I could understand what you are really going through. Because at some point we have the tendency to, you know, to generalize situation according to our own experience, no? But we have to understand that our experiences are different. So we have to acknowledge and at the same time not invalidate where the other persons are coming from. Yun.
So, is it wrong to compare your feelings with others? Like, with how others feel?
Yeah, I like that you've mentioned that, Anne. Kasi ako, I always tell my clients that, one of the greatest sins that we can do to ourselves is self-abandonment. And if we will always, invalidate our own emotions, or we will not try to express our emotions, it's also abandoning and not
Ourselves.
recognizing your own emotions. But at the end of the day, lahat tayo may kanyang-kanyang emotions, and all these are all valid. So we should not compare, but the best thing is to acknowledge na this is what I'm feeling, I'm happy and it's okay. Tomorrow I'll be sad and it's still okay.
Yeah, and I think what we said earlier, there's space for different types of emotions. There's also
Right.
space for different people to feel different emotions, right? Di naman kailangan same tayo ng
Right.
nafe-feel, no?
Mhm.
Shine, I want to hear from
Yeah.
you on this topic on comparative suffering.
For me, and comparison really, it's a normal part of human cognition, right? It can be good for us, for self-improvement, because it allows us to understand what are the things, what are my non-negotiables, what can work for me that does not work for others, right? It's okay because we also get information as to how we want things to be. When does it become detrimental when we talk about comparative suffering? Because it is indeed a defense mechanism, right? When we talk about comparative suffering, or when we have that idea of comparing ourselves consistently with others in terms of suffering, it can walk us right into being bitter, being judgmental, even and being resentful. Like, similar to what Cherrie shared, na if a friend, for example, would call you and say, oh, this is how I'm feeling at work and this and that. And then, if you're the type who would compare that suffering, you would be rolling your eyes at the other line, and you would be telling yourself, she's comparing about her work while other people don't have work. But again, we allow different situations, different emotions. And it's all about processing also our feelings and acknowledging that our own suffering allows us to grow, right? Our compassion for those around us. We all, and you like Brené Brown, right? So she talks about empathy all the time, that when we practice empathy, we create more empathy. And thus, it is really not a one-way street, right? When we forget to be kind to ourselves because we compare, or we tend to focus on comparative suffering, we are unable to be kind to others, right? But when we grant ourselves permission to feel, right? That's the title of our talk. When we grant ourselves permission to feel the feels that we have, we allow others to shine. Okay? So, nega, comparative suffering. So, we allow others to shine. Then, we automatically offer the support that,
Correct.
the support that we have, into releasing our own struggle, right? Helping others because of what we're also going through. I mean, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah,
that's
no,
it.
makes a lot of sense, Shine.
Yeah.
I think you touch upon important topic as well, which is being compassionate. No, being compassionate on yourself, being kind yourself, allowing yourself to feel something, and therefore being compassionate to others if they're feeling that way too. And there's no right way to be angry, or there's no right way to be happy. It's really kanya-kanya. No, Rudy, what would you like to add to this topic?
I really like this idea of trying to understand the person from where he or she is coming from, rather than using your own filter to judge someone else's situation. Because more often than not, when we hear someone complain, right, or share what they're going through, you try to either solve it for them, therefore, like as if you had the answer, or assess that emotion from your own point of view. And sometimes it invalidates that person's feelings, right? And the same way, if you invalidate your own feeling by comparing what you're going through versus others, then it also uh, doesn't work for you, right? And you feel stifled. Either you feel stifled to share a negative emotion, or you feel stifled to share a positive emotion, right? And I think in both ways, it's will be dangerous for you, because those emotions exist in you, and suppressing those emotions can lead to even further get you more anxious, or even if you had tendencies for depression, get you depressed. So it can really be triggers for mood disorders, or really put you in a bad mood. So I think comparative suffering, it's like when you're jealous of someone else's misfortune, or good fortune, right? If you can turn that into an inspiration, that's great, right? Oh, ang saya niya, and the person has less of what I have. Maybe I can look at things in a brighter side. Then that's helpful. But normally, if you're just invalidating your own feeling, I think that's not gonna help you.
You talk about reframing, no? You have to reframe yourself, put it in a different perspective. I'd like to hear your comments on the second part, because we were focused very much on the I don't have a right to feel angry, stressed out, frustrated. Ano naman yung I feel guilty about feeling happy? Shine, have you heard your clients speak like this?
Yeah, a lot of times. And they feel guilty because, it's similar also to comparative suffering because, am I allowed to feel this way? Am I allowed to complain about my situation when I know there are also a lot of people who have it worse than I do? Right? So that's usually the mindset or the thought process, no? Do not feel guilty for the things that you have. I don't think if it's something that you're blessed with, instead of feeling guilty, be grateful. I'm lucky that I have this and I'm capable of being able to help others. because I have the capacity of I am where I am, right? Whether it's a job, whether you're in a happier state, and you have the energy, you have the capacity to listen more to your friends who are in need, or to listen, to give advice to people who need it the most, right? So there's really no use being guilty. Put your energy towards being a better person also for others, instead of feeling sulking, having that guilt within you.
Mm. Cherry, would you like to add to
Yeah.
that?
Ako siguro, Anne, with that question or statement, no, I'd like to, if you have watched the Inside Out movie, di ba?
Oh,
That when
yes.
sadness left,
Uh-uh.
joy was not able to become 100% joy, right? And I guess whenever we are in that state of happiness, we have to savor it also, because it's for us to enjoy it, because it's not every day that even this time that we are in a pandemic, it's not every day that we can feel full, happy, and joyful, no. And you owe it to yourself to feel it,
Mm-mm.
because it's not always there, therefore. And there, if you can be able to feel that happiness, it means that you are recognizing also sadness. It's
Mm.
really balancing that. I guess that's for
Cherry,
me.
that's spoken really like a mindfulness advocate, no?
Mhm.
It's focusing on the present and dialing
Mm-mm.
in to really what you're feeling. Rudy, ikaw, do you feel guilty?
Yeah, no, I
Uh-huh.
think for me, my reflection, this happens
Mm.
a lot on social media,
Mm.
right? Where some people who share what they're doing or some joys get judged. But honestly, for me, that's their social media page, right? So if you don't like any of the posts of the person you're following, then don't follow. But as Shine has said, and as Cherrie has said, feelings of happiness, I think this is what's needed in the world today, right? So normally, I get inspired when I see people happy, rather
Yeah.
I feel worse,
Yeah.
right? Of course, sometimes I feel envy. Like, uy, wala na silang mask sa Denmark, for example,
Mm.
or they attended a live concert, or it's amazing to have all of their friends around them. It's a tinge of envy, but on the long run, you say it still exists. The world is functioning.
Mm.
And the world is still a beautiful place. Maybe I can find my own happiness as well, right?
Mm.
So I feel like, okay, as like suffering, it's acknowledging all of these feelings, whether it's
Mm.
happiness or sadness or loneliness or anxiety.
Mm-mm. But I always hear, and Pao, maybe you can share the next statement. Um, I always hear this feedback na, you could probably take it to an extreme. Now, whenever you're feeling negative emotions, you force yourself to think on the bright side. Is there, what can you say about forced positivity?
Mm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Shine, what can you say
Yeah.
about this? Mm-mm.
When positivity is forced upon, or when it's forced to silence our emotions, or to silence our human experience, I think that's when it becomes toxic, right? Because our emotions, like when we fear something, when there's heartbreak, when there's pain, and these are all genuine aspects of us being human,
Mm.
right? It's part of who we are. So it becomes detrimental because we are not able to open up our real self.
Mm.
And we tend to say that, okay, there should be nothing wrong kasi when we openly express our feelings, right? The
Mm.
toxic positivity, or when we cover it, it tells us that, okay, there's no room for
Mm.
painful emotions. There's no room for harboring or expressing such emotions. And that's when
Mm.
it becomes negative. That's when it becomes bad.
Yeah, so it's when you totally ignore the negative and just really try to bury that with the positive thoughts, no, without recognizing that you are indeed going through some negative feelings. Maybe quickly,
Yeah.
Cherry, you can add to that. Mm-hmm.
Remember, Anne, whenever we're having the self-compassion and mindfulness webinar, that part of the
Mm.
being mindful is acknowledging what you are feeling at the moment, feeling the feeling. It's not
Mm.
repressing it. And I guess it's very important. That's why I always use the analogy of snowball for our emotions. No? That if you are
Mm.
feeling the sadness, grief, and all those negative emotions, you may, intern as yung term ni Shyne kanina na internalize it and feel it, no? Because otherwise, if you will try to repress it, the more it becomes bigger inside. Di ba kasi ang snowball, when you try to roll it sa snow, it becomes
Mm.
bigger and bigger. So the more that you are not putting attention or giving attention into it, it's just there. It's not, hindi siya nadi-diffuse eh. Remember that emotions came from, energy and motion. You cannot break energy. It will
Mm.
always stay there. So the more that you repress it, it will just becomes bigger and the outburst will come later on.
Mm. Right. So what we're really trying to say is feel the feelings. Feel the feelings. If you're feeling happy, okay. And it can change from day to day, especially now, no? In the pandemic, I think all of us have gone through a
Yeah.
roller coaster of emotions. Rudy, you wanted to say something?
No, I think I recognize that there's a strategy to look into the bright side of
Correct.
things, right?
Uh-huh.
But
Uh-huh.
I think it's a good coping strategy when you want to act, right? So, or you want to feel the energy that there's something that can be done. And that's also, as human beings, that's our way to survive. But not recognizing that you had these feelings of hurt or loneliness or pain, as sabi nga ni Cherry, it existed, right? You felt
Mm.
it, right? So you just acknowledge, okay, I'm sad now, but maybe tomorrow I will not be sad, right? Or maybe I can do something about my situation. It doesn't mean that you always have to force positivity on yourself. I think what's even more dangerous, it's you're forcing positivity on others, right? Uy,
Mm.
ba, huwag kang ganyan, di ba? Mayaman ka
Stay
naman,
positive.
be happy na lang.
Oo,
And
yung
when
wala kang karapatang malungkot, mga
oh,
ganyan.
I think these are words that should be taboo, right? I mean,
Right.
okay,
Yeah.
it should be taboo.
Oo.
It's
Oo.
a opinion, but I think it's not allowing the person to go through the range of emotions. And for me, one of the things I get reminded of going through therapy myself, like emotions are not permanent. It's not,
Mm.
like, say, I'm sad na
Mm.
the next year, whatever, that I'm gonna be sad.
Mm.
Because sometimes when you express an emotion, you release it to the world, like parang, okay, I don't feel as sad as I was
Mm.
saying it, right?
Mhm.
Or
Yeah,
let's say when you share. That's why I think I really like, there's a question I saw in the chat, like how can you share emotions without being toxic?
Mm.
I really like this tip that was given to me. Like you signpost, like you say, oy, mag-rant lang ako ah. Just
Mm.
rant. Okay, tapos na ako. Okay, hindi mo kailangang isolve, basta nakapaglabas na ako ng sama ng loob, okay na ako. Right? Or at
Mm.
least I feel better that I was able to share to someone who's just gonna listen and you don't need to solve. And I feel less angry actually after going through it. But if
Mm.
you think, uy wag kang ano ba yan, wag kang magreklamo, or okay ka ngayon, okay ka lagi dapat, parang okay, di nandun lang siya sa loob mo.
Yeah,
And
it's always just bottled in,
yep,
right? And kaya may outburst kasi really you suppress it so much, but there will come a point when you really have to
it's just
say
too
it.
much to handle. Yeah, it's in your heart. Yeah.
Mm-mm. I'd like to bring this conversation to the workplace, no, because obviously the attendees here need to manage their emotions in the workplace. There's a statement that we hear, and I'll tell you, we hear this from leaders and managers. So I'd like to get a reaction on this statement. So can we show the statement, Pao? Okay. With feelings ko to babasahin. Kaartehan lang yung mental health issues na yan. Mental health is not a legitimate reason to take a break from work. I think the context of this question is there are managers who feel na baka they're faking it. Are they faking being mentally unwell so that, may excuse sila for not performing well? I'd like to ask you, Cherry, can people fake it? Like, kaartehan nga lang ba siya? Yeah.
Sana nga, 'di ba? Para hindi ganun kadami ang may problema, but no, actually
Oo.
no. If we are going to really assess a person who's going through mental health illnesses, we have to see that there is always a consistency in the behavior, no? For example, for anxiety, it has to be there for 6 months, almost every day. For depression, 2 weeks, almost every day. No, and for a person not to be able to get out of that state, that's already a struggle. No, there's already suffering. So I guess if we will be telling this, that's already, discounting or not validating what the person is going through. Kasi kung ikaw ang may depression and anxiety, you wouldn't want to be in that particular state, no? And it's very difficult. It's very tough. Being in that state itself is already a suffering. And just try to imagine how much people ang nagsasuffer on their own because of the stigma that we have in the society, no? And no, it cannot be fake. Kasi if you are diagnosed, there's a consistency and there's a criteria. Hindi lang siya pwede mo sabihin na ngayong araw depressed ako, bukas hindi, no? But it's not like that. There's a criteria, and if that criteria needs to be present, it has to be the behavior and the state of the person is actually consistent almost every day.
Thank you for that, Cherrie. And I see in the audience comments, ang sad ng ganyang mindset. Totoo, that's wrong,
Yeah.
no? But I think let's not target naman those who've spoken this. I think it's come from an innocent standpoint. Like, how do I know? How do I know if someone is really not okay? Shyne, your thoughts on this? Because a lot of people don't know how to recognize din talaga kasi, right?
And yeah, especially in the workplace, when we tend to just deliver and deliver, right? It's difficult for us to admit, no, okay, I'm tired na pala, or I'm not okay. So one thing that we can try to address in the workplace is when you notice a sudden change of behavior, right? With someone that you're currently working with. Say, for example, now that we're doing everything virtually, it becomes more challenging because you don't get to see the person, right? You don't get to see the reaction, or there's no you don't see the person. So another thing also is to try to be more careful, right? Or try to see how the person is reacting in such a way that, what if, let's say, me and Anne, we used to work together and I've been so bibo, I would talk a lot during meetings, I would put in my suggestions, and then for 2 weeks or 3 weeks now, I tend to just shy away. I tend to withdraw. I'm not my usual self. Or I could be just tired, really. But one thing to address that is to talk. Get into a communication, check-in sessions with everybody at work or with that particular workmate of yours, and ask the person, oh, I've noticed you've been quiet these past days. Is everything okay? Is there something happening at home? Right? Because we need to normalize conversations like this. This is what we've been pushing, right? Since the beginning of this conversation. We need to put it out there and not be scared to notice these things and to talk about it openly. Because I think wala namang mawawala pag tinanong, oh, Anne, napansin ko you've been quiet. Is there anything you'd want to share? Is there anything that I can help you with? Yeah. And when you do that, please come from a place of genuinity naman. Hindi because you want to ask, because, oh, I want to make chismis, sasabihin ko kay Rudi ganito, or sasabihin ko kay Cherrie. Of course not, right? Come from a genuine place, because, again, we need to be more compassionate as ever now. So when we notice change of behavior at work, we address it in a positive manner also.
Rudi, I'd like to get the point of view from a leader.
Yeah.
I
think the first you have to assume that the person is saying, it's as what Cherrie said, it's difficult to admit that you're going through mental health issues because the fact is there's still a stigma. That's why I openly talk about having gone through mental health issues myself. To just try to break the stigma that if you have mental health issues that you cannot be productive you cannot lead, or you cannot be happy or a great person, right? So as a manager, you have to assume that what the person is saying is true, and what you can offer is help. It's like physical health, right? So if someone says, I'm diabetic, or I have high cholesterol and I need to manage, I cannot be a night shift because I need this number of 8 hours of sleep. You have to assume that that person is saying the truth. And then what the manager should do is to provide support. And that's why Infinite Care or other mental health companies exist, because managers normally are ill-equipped to provide this mental health support. We're not experts, right? We cannot do what Cherrie and Shyne does with their clients. And we shouldn't be, right? Baka tayo pa yung source ng trigger ng stress. So we refer them to the experts, right? That can help them through this difficult situation. So definitely hindi kaartehan ng mental health issue. The statistic now is that 2 out of 5 working professionals have gone through or going through severe mental health issues. Before it was 1 out of 5. Because of COVID, it's now 2 out of 5, right? And if you test a person, as what Cherrie said, I've been tested myself, with symptoms, you can actually even have this, etc. So you can get diagnosed. So even if you don't have a diagnosis, right? A leader should, because what is the objective of the leader? Is to inspire, to engage, and to get the best out of their employees. And treating your employees, your team members, as human beings is one of your responsibility. And if you treat them just as parang a machine, right? A robot that will just deliver work, whatever happens, then I think for the employees, that's not the right team or leader for you. There's also a generational thing, right? In my generation, so I'm 42 years old, so hindi na ako millennial or Gen Z. Hindi kasi pinag-uusapan yan right? So when someone is feeling depressed, depression is like a feeling. Parang, ay, na-depress ako, ganyan, isang araw, or nalungkot ako. Pero we know now, right? Depression is a mood disorder that can stretch months or even years or even their whole life. So I think generationally, the younger generation has more awareness and has less stigma. The oldies like me are only learning about this, right? I think not saying that it's an excuse, but just a level of understanding. If your boss does not understand, might it be that they don't really fully embrace the understanding that as human beings, we have both physical and mental health, right? Kasi this is not new, right? As human beings, you have both physical and mental health. That has always existed. It's just now that we have words to describe it, and there's now an industry that tries to help it. I was super happy that France as a country has now offering free therapy, no, not free, but providing therapy to all their citizens. It's a government saying it's so important that I will spend on this. And I think we have the mental health law in the Philippines, right? That states that whether you're in school, whether you're in your company as an individual, the government is providing all of these mechanisms to provide support, or companies should provide support to their employees. So the recognition of mental health as an important aspect of our lives is now there. Hopefully the stigma continues to decrease, because people like me who are gone through mental health issues need the support. And if you get support, then you're back to who you are, like as a person, right? So it's not, parang nagkasakit ka lang, di ba? Okay, nagkasakit ka, nilagnat ka, or nagkaroon ka ng bout of specific disease, you get treated and you're gonna be better. And that's the hope. If you're keeping it, you're being judged for that, right? That makes it even worse. So I really hope that leaders, even yourself, would start to recognize how important it is, not judge people when they're going through something, but instead support each other in all of our own personal journeys.
You know what I'm reminded of with what you shared, Rudi, is that everybody has a responsibility to this. There's the individual responsibility to allow yourself to express the feelings, to permit yourself to show your emotions, because how else will the others know that you're going through something. There's the leader's role, right, as you highlighted, and then there's the organization, and then the community at large.
Yeah.
And oh my gosh, we're now past 4 o'clock. This is really such a rich conversation. Now I feel guilty for just capping this to 1 hour. But what I'd like to do is to ask you, because I think it will cover a lot of the questions in the Q&A. I'd like to ask our speakers on your call to action. What would you like to remind our participants here about permission to feel? I'll start with you, Cherrie.
Okay, sige. Ayan. I guess, 'di ba, when we talk about mental health, it covers everything. It's not just about how we process in the aspect of cognitive, 'di ba? The mind processes. When we talk about how we can be able to take care of our mental health, it's really encompassing everything, no? So for this particular topic of permission to feel, what I would like to encourage everyone is that, as you take care of your physical health, like you exercise regularly, if you are putting an effort or making time to exercise like 3 or 4 times a week, it's the same thing with our emotions. So put it or incorporate in your weekly, at least weekly habit, no, about your emotions, no. So if you are doing a lot of things in terms of self-care, like exercising, going out, or talking to a friend could be also a part of your mental hygiene. Dapat meron ding emotional hygiene, ano? So these are the things that you can actually do kahit once a week lang, if I may ask everyone, no. It's kasi it's really about being in touch with your emotion. In the context of mindfulness, it's really about being in touch with your emotion and acknowledging what you are actually feeling. So again, the feeling, or acknowledging the emotions. No, so you can actually do it, like if you wanted to talk to someone, if you are comfortable doing that, that could work, no? Or if you are not someone who's, used to articulating what you are feeling, journal it, no? For others, I do have one client. She talks to herself using a recorder on the phone, no? So ginagamit niya yung technology, yung cellphone niya, and then she will just record everything she feels, no? And then later on, after several days or weeks, papakinggan niya yon, and then matatawa na lang siya, no? But that's a good way to actually express our emotion. Remember that, for us to be mentally and holistically well, it has to be a balance of everything. We cannot just focus on one aspect and neglect everything, because, it has a domino effect pa rin later on, So feel the feeling at least once a week. Yon.
I love it. And choose your weapon. Is it device, journaling? Is it talking, recording yourself on the phone? But try to find a way to express it. Thank you, Cherrie, for that. Shyne, call to action.
Yeah, my call to action for this one is, when we forget, right, to be kind to ourselves, we are also unable to share kindly with others. So I'm big on compassion, especially during this time of the pandemic. So allow to process your feelings, acknowledge, because the way that we acknowledge our own suffering allows us to grow our compassion for those people around us. So permission to feel, in order for us to be more compassionate towards ourselves and towards others.
Yeah, and it's a work in progress, Shyne, no? I mean,
Yeah.
I really believe we're the hardest on ourselves, right?
Mm.
We're the hardest on ourselves. So we have to start working on ourselves also. Thank you for that, Shyne. Rudy,
Yeah.
last but not the
Thank
least.
you, Shine and Cherry. I learned a lot from your call to action. Maybe I'll look at from a different aspect for leaders who are part of this webinar, right? I think it is incumbent upon us to demonstrate and show our authentic selves to our team members. There are questions of whether should you be sharing your mental health issues with your team. as I said, I think being your real self allows everyone else in your team to also focus on their humanity. And there really is a way for all of you to be engaged and productive, even if someone or you are going through mental health issues. And as I said, it's a disease, it's an issue. You treat it, right? And if you treat it, then you're gonna get well, and you have the support of everyone. You shouldn't get judged for it, and it doesn't also mean that you're a lesser person or a lesser leader or a lesser employee. It's just you as a human being with all of her imperfections. So I think it's all about making our world more psychologically safe, our teams making it more psychologically safe, and the leaders take a huge responsibility on this, because if you are the one saying, these are
It's
it's
modeling, right, Rudy?
modeling, right? Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like I've cried in front of my team, and Shy knows that, right? So and do I feel bad about it? Yeah, afterwards, of course, I'm still had the programming of decades of masculinity, but that's who I am. And I think comparing your suffering to others might just push you down into this mode where everything is repressed, and then you'll just get to an even worse situation. So I hope you allow other people to feel, and also not make their feelings imposed on you. I think that's naman yung other side of the coin. The other point I would like to raise, so I know we've invited a lot of our Infinite Care members here, right? So your companies are part of our partners. I really would like to encourage you, utilize the services that your company has worked with us on. We have a mobile app, Android, iOS, we have a web app, create your accounts. We have a lot of content there that you could use for self-care, right? So specific to the issues that you have, whether it's anxiety, sleep, or financial insecurity, we also have a chat helpline. You can chat with our care coaches, or you can book your counseling sessions. Like Cherrie and Shyne are one of are a few of our counselors. And if you are not part of the Infinite Care family, then if you think that your employees, your team, or your company should have this, just reach out to us, or other companies like us. I think it's now a great situation to be in, where more and more companies are recognizing the importance of mental health. And I think as we continue what we've started here in the Philippines, I think we continue to talk about mental health as if, it's just a normal topic, and there's no stigma. And then we can all work on keeping our good mental health, or really trying to go through and solving our mental health issues. So I think that's what I would like to leave with our participants.
Thank you so much, Rudy, Shyne, and Cherrie, for your time. Again, I feel sad and guilty that I did not extend this to a longer time, but I also feel happy and proud of all of you for showing up here and joining us in our conversation to normalize mental health. It's all about all of us together showing up to our emotions and sharing it with each other. So I leave you with also another call to action, not from Anne Ordoña, but from Anne Hathaway. Pao, can you share the next slide? There you go. Guys, you're allowed to fight for the joy in your life, even in the madness of the current moment that is the pandemic. Let's allow ourselves to also feel happy, feel gladness, feel gratitude, as Shyne has said. And thank you once again for joining us today. For those who need a certificate to show that they have attended this talk, you may fill up a survey that Paula, our team members, have posted in the chat. You may also fill up the survey so we can get your feedback. Thank you for everybody who has engaged with us in the chat, para tayong may live comments and in the Q&A. So we have learned so much from the panelists, but we've also learned a lot from the from the participants. So thank you so much.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Have a
Thank you,
good day.
everybody. And I hope
Bye.
you all have a good day.
Thank you, everyone. Keep
Thank
safe.
you.
Thank you.